and going live.
Thank you, councillors. Welcome to the monthly meeting for September. So it is September already. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Diprose. And please be reminded that this council meeting is recorded and it will be live streamed and will remain available to the public online after this evening. Deputy Mayor Beswick, would you read our acknowledgement of country and statement of values, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Our acknowledgement of country, the Central Coast Council acknowledges and pays respect to the traditional owners of Lutruwita, Tasmania, the Palawa Pakana people. We acknowledge the Punalapana tribe of this northern country, and in doing so, we celebrate one of the world's oldest continuing cultures. And our statement of values, guided by the diverse beliefs, experiences and backgrounds of the people we represent, we strive to make inspired and respectful decisions today that will build a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item 1.1, which is the confirmation of minutes. Minutes have been circulated. Could I have somebody move? Thank you, Councillor Hiscott, and seconded Councillor Viney. That was very fast. Councillor Hiscott has moved that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 21st of August has been confirmed, seconded by Councillor Viney. Any questions on the minutes? No, there being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Item 2.1 is councillor workshops. A list of workshops there that we have participated in. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item? Thank you, Councillor Lehman, seconded Councillor Wiley. Any questions on that list? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.1 is Mayor's communications, and I do believe that we have an award to receive, and perhaps another one to talk about. So I welcome Director Sam Searle to tell us about the award.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to present to Council, or announce to Council, that Central Coast Council was successful in winning 2 awards at the Chamber of Commerce Awards on Saturday evening. One for the Hive, a tourism award, and the second award was for an innovation award, which was for an app that Council recently implemented, Anteno. And so I just wanted to formally give that to you. Anteno, of course, is an app that we implemented in July as a way of trying to better communicate and engage with our community. And it's been an initiative of our organisational services team and quite well received by the community. So it enables us to send targeted messages to our community about places that they care about, and also enables the community to communicate with Council. So
thank you so much. Thank you. That's fabulous, and well done to your team that were responsible for the innovation and the implementation and the ongoing work, and of course the works team, which are a key part of delivering and helping us meet community expectations. So thank you, and well done to the team that did that. Fabulous. As Sam said, we were also lucky enough to receive an award for Hive. You know, not yet 2 full years of operation at the Hive, but fortunate to receive an award that recognised the excellent service that they provide to visitors to our community, as well as the absolute the wonderful work they do at Hive. So congratulations to our team, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting the awards. Moving on, 3.2 is the Mayor's Diary. Some amendments there for myself for noting, please. I did not attend the Cradle Coast Authority representatives meeting. That was attended by the Deputy Mayor and the General Manager, and I also was an apology for the Merseyleaf and Emergency Management Committee meeting, and I thank the Mayor of Devonport, Alison Jarman, for chairing that. And it was my great pleasure to join the volunteers and the good folks from Surf Life Saving Tasmania yesterday at the Volunteer Marine Rescue media announcement of a grant of some $10,000, which has gone to provide them with fabulous bright red wet weather gear to keep them safe and warm while they undertake their activities. So it was great to join them, and we thank them so much for their work. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution
So
for
moved,
that
Mayor.
item? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Viney. Any questions? Happy to take any questions on any of those things. Most of you were all at those things, which was also fabulous. There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.1 is declarations of interest. Calling for any declarations of interest for today's agenda. Councillor Lehman.
Yes, I have an interest in 10.09.
10.09. Thank you so much. Any others? No, thank you. Moving on. 4.1, councillor reports. Councillors that have been appointed by the council to community and other organisations are invited at this time to share the good work of our community with one another. Does anybody wish to make a report? Councillor Hiskett.
Yes, if I could. Thank you, Mayor. Just to report that the Penguin Surf Club has been awarded the State Senior Championships, I think it's called, which will be happening in March 23rd, 24th, I think, or late March next year. So they're well underway beginning preparations for that, but it's exciting that they've received that opportunity again after the successful juniors that they had earlier this year. So yeah, very looking forward to seeing how that plays out and trying to get down there at some point to see what's happening. So
Indeed, and help them with their planning, no doubt you will. Thank you for that, and congratulations to Penguin. They've got a great record now hosting those national events. And what a great venue to do it in. Thank you. Any other reports? No, we're moving on. 5.1 is leave of absence. There are no applications for consideration at this meeting. Item 6.1 is deputations. No requests for deputations to address the meeting or make statements or deliver reports have been made. 7.1 is petitions. No petitions under the provisions of the Local Government Act 1993 have been presented. Item 8, number 8.1 is councillors' questions without notice. Councillors are invited to share at this time if they had a question for anyone. We'll go around the table. Councillor Lehman, any questions of the directors or the general manager?
No, thank you, Mayor.
None. Councillor Wiley.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Hiskett.
no, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Viney.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Beswick.
No, thanks, Mayor.
And none for myself. Item 8.2 is councillors' questions on notice. No questions on notice have been received. Item 9.1 is public question time. At a time in between agenda items or as close as possible to 6:40, the council will allow 30 minutes for public question times. If you're intending to ask a question, note that a maximum of 2 questions might be asked, and questions related to a matter on the agenda that has not yet been considered are not allowed. And we can flesh out further instructions closer to 6:40 if we have any questions then. Public questions taken on notice at the 21st of August 2023 council meeting. One public question was taken on notice from Ms. Adriana Gibson, and a response is provided in the agenda below. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for that item? Thank you, Councillor Hiskett. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. No questions, I'm presuming? No, thank you for noting that. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Were there any councillor questions for the Mayor while we're in this area? No? Fabulous. Thank you. Moving on to general management. Section 10, 10.1 are minutes and notes of committees of the council and other organisations. We've been provided with the list and the copies of the minutes. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this
So
item?
moved.
Thank you, Councillor Viney. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Any questions on those minutes? Councillor Hiskett.
I'll take this opportunity, as I missed in the
Councillor reports.
reports, sorry, to just mention that Silverham Circus, who do sometimes provide us reports too, so this is the opportunity, are having their term 3 show upcoming in the next in about a fortnight from now. So if anyone wants to get some tickets to Tangent, please make sure they visit the Slipstream Circus website or Facebook page to secure their tickets. They're going fast.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll stop you there before you go off on a tangent. Yes. Well, we wish them the best of luck with their production. It is always fabulous. Anything else on those minutes? No. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Against? Motion is carried. Item 10.2 is the Penguin Miniature Railway Management Committee review. There is a report there from the Executive Services Officer and the full detail of the history and the consultation to date and a suggested resolution for you to consider. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item? Thank you, Councillor Heskett. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Heskett, did you wish to speak to this matter?
Only briefly to say that this is obviously been going on quite a while, and I think the suggested resolution needs to bring us to a resolution at some point in time. So commend the report that's been put towards us, which summarises the information over the last few years. I'll be interested to see the next steps, which is recommended from the resolution.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No, presume you have nothing further to add. Councillor Heskett? No, that's great. All right, in that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.3 is amendments to the Dalverton Regional Waste Management Authority rules. Once again, you've been provided with a report there and a copy of the marked up rules. Hopefully everybody's clear about why we need to review those rules at this point in time. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Beswick, did you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, Mayor, it's fairly self-explanatory when the document's read. It just frees up the Dalverton Waste Group to be able to utilise some of their own funds without going externally as one item, apart from tidying up some of the rules that have been in place for some time. It's always wise to go over the rules of an organisation on a semi-regular basis to just tidy up areas which are causing areas. And just for the record, I guess, as far as the funding goes, we're doing the large FOGO plant called the DOT project up there at the moment, and with the rules that are currently in place, the authority haven't been able to use the funds that they've got in place. But that basically means with some of these new rules in there that they will be able to borrow that money, pay back at interest, and then the money's going back into the authority rather than externally. So I'm happy and encouraged by these changes that they're bringing through, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Any other speakers? No, simple, all understood. Fabulous. Anything further to add?
No, it's all.
No,
Mayor.
terrific. Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 10.4 is the common seal. You've been provided with a schedule of the documents for which the common seal was attached. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item? Thank you, Councillor Viney. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. Any questions on that schedule? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 10.5 is contracts and agreements. Again, you've been provided with a schedule. Could I have somebody move that they be received? Thank you, Councillor Smith.
No,
Seconded, Councillor Beswick. Any questions on that schedule? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 10.6 is the correspondence addressed to the Mayor and councillors, and you have an updated schedule provided for you tonight, which includes the correspondence from the 22nd of August until today's date. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item for the updated schedule?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Viney. Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. And we have no councillor questions for the Department of the General Manager. Moving on to community services, 10.7, development application determinations. You've been provided with a copy of the schedule of all the application determinations that have been made. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for that item?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Beswick, seconded by councillor Wiley. Any questions?
No questions, Mayor. I suppose just a note that the number of applications has dropped off a little bit in this last month. That's not necessarily a reflection of a total slowdown, but generally it's been running pretty hard, and with interest rates and so forth, so there's going to be a bit of a back off. But as was noted earlier, that the numbers year to date are not far off from where they were last year. So
Indeed. We thank our staff that work so hard to keep up with all the applications. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
aye.
Against, the motion is carried. 10.8, council acting as a planning authority. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution that we commence acting as a planning authority?
So
Thank you, councillor Viney, seconded councillor Wiley. I put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. 10.9 is Land Use Planning Approvals Act 1993, the combined draft amendment for the Central Coast Local Provision Schedule to add a site-specific qualification. And councillor Lehman, we will bid you farewell. Thank you. Did she go? Thank you. Thanks, Darryl. I'm just playing with my tabs there. So you have a full report there and a resolution for your consideration. Do I have somebody move that the resolution be received? Thank you, councillor Hiskett. Do I have a second? Thank you, councillor Wiley. Councillor Hiskett, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, a fairly big proposal. What we're doing tonight is either the suggested resolution is to endorse the report to go to the Tasmanian Planning Commission, who will then make an ultimate determination on this policy. So we are not approving or otherwise the proposal as it stands. In response to the representations, which there were many and varied, there were a couple of main themes that I took from that and just like to comment on. One is in relation to the height, but the main concern I heard was the concern that height then sets a precedent for the Penguin Town. It's a fairly narrow set of circumstances that allow this building to be approved for this position, and it is location based, it's zone based. It's not in any way an endorsement of overall heights within the Penguin Township, and I think it's very clear from councillor conversation and from the report that that's not what it is intended to be. So to alleviate that fear of that being a precedent for Penguin Town, I think we're pretty confident, supremely confident that there's no issue in relation to that. Secondly, one of the major other themes coming through was about the people that are currently there. As in the previous discussion, urge the proponents to be conscientious of that. If they want to achieve any sort of social license to continue within Penguin, they'll need to do that. But unfortunately, it's not a planning consideration. It is a private organisation, and if they wanted to close the doors tomorrow, they would be within their rights to do so as well. So again, I think that's upon the proponent to do that, to be able to continue to operate and be welcomed within Penguin. They'll be wanting to ensure that they look after the people that are there. And lastly, the other theme was about the road safety. I think council staff have addressed that very well in the widening of the road where required. I do think it's necessary for council to review the western end of Penguin where Crescent meets Main Street. That's part of our Penguin master plan, has some considerations in there, and I think we should certainly continue to review that over the years, and this obviously is the intention is this quite a few years before this gets developed. And I think we've got an opportunity to look at that or into the future if it becomes a problem. But to me, the traffic impact assessment that they produced was sufficient to give me comfort that will be safe into the future. So they're the main three themes that I saw coming through from the respondents that were unhappy with it, and I think that they've been addressed fully by either the proponent or by the council staff's report. So endorse the motion.
Thank you so much. Any other speakers? Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'd just like to comment that we're just progressing the report by endorsing it and sending it on to the Tasmanian Planning Commission for them to actually go through the report as it stands.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Yes, Mayor, just briefly, I'm happy to support the motion as it's been put, and I just want to concur with the comments that Councillor Hiskett's noted there as well. In the end, I think in situations like this, I can see a benefit in an LPS amendment going to the Tasmanian Planning Commission. Everybody that's put in objections to it have got an opportunity to represent themselves at the Planning Commission when if they so choose. So yeah, it's I think I suppose one point about the height that was noted, where it is tucked in the corner, I think it's going to be fairly unobtrusive. There seems to be a bit of commentary perhaps that's on the edge of it's 4 stories on the edge of the park, but it's actually, you know, the buildings on the edge of the waterway are only single story in the majority, except for the restaurant area. So as I say, I think the Planning Commission will sort that out one way or the other, and it takes it out of our hands and it'll be dealt with there.
So, any other speakers? Councillor Smith.
I'd just like to acknowledge the great work done by our staff in this big proposal. It's not easy, but they've done an excellent job and addressed all issues. Just well done.
Fabulous. Thank you. Councillor Hiskett, did you wish to close?
Yeah, just to make one last point that I think it's more accommodation is needed in Penguin, and that's only going to increase with the football ground and the activities that are taking place and the booming jewel of our coast that it is. So, you know, provided that they have provided the information that they need to for the Tasmanian Planning Commission to approve this, I can only see the benefits.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, Daryl. Just wait for Councillor Councillor Lehman to join us again. In trouble with my councillor surnames this evening.
Wasn't full house.
Sorry?
Lucky it wasn't full house.
Yes.
Just remember Councillor Boswick's name, unlike the previous mayor. That is your hat, John.
Councillor Lehman, thank you. So that brings us to the end of community services. We have no councillor questions for the Department of Community Services. We have no councillor questions for the Department of Infrastructure Services. Moving on to corporate services, item 10.10, statutory determinations. A schedule of statutory determinations being made during the months have been provided to you. Would a councillor care to move the suggested resolution for this item, please?
So move, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Hiskett. Any questions on that schedule? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. And we have no councillor questions for the Department of Corporate Services. Which brings us almost to the closure of the meeting. But first we will go to public question time. The General Manager has 2 questions that have been provided in writing previously, and then we will see if there is anyone in the gallery that has a question. So thank you, General Manager.
Madam Mayor, thank you. On Thursday, the 14th of September, councillors, Mr. Gary Herp submitted 2 questions to be asked tonight. Question number 1. In the last 12-month period, with respect to applications for development in the residential zone, what percentage of applications were approved as of right? That is no dispensations from normal planning requirements, as you know, as opposed to applications requiring dispensations from the normal planning requirements. The response from the team here is there is no as of right category in the Tasmanian planning scheme, rather use and development, which is not exempt, falls into one of four categories. No permit required, permitted, discretionary or prohibited. The 22-23 financial year, Council issued 31 permitted permits and 130 discretionary permits. A further 103 applications were deemed no permit required. Only 2 applications were refused and no appeals were initiated against the council. Discretionary applications involve a public notification period and are required when the type of use being applied for is listed as discretionary in the relevant zone and or where a feature of the use or development, e.g. building height, setbacks, etc., does not meet all the acceptable solutions defined in the Tasmanian planning scheme. Question 2 that Gary asked, could I ask why the council does not operate an annual hard rubbish collection service? And our response is an annual hard rubbish collection is not currently covered by the waste fees that are levied to council. However, a hard rubbish collection service is being considered as part of the council's review of strategic priorities and actions. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you for those, and those responses will be provided to Mr. Herbst in writing also. Will they? Yeah, thank you so much. Were there any questions from the public gallery, please?
Well, I'm Gary Herbst. Sorry,
Welcome,
I just
Mr.
walked
Herbst.
in and I didn't hear the preamble to what's been said. I didn't think these matters were going to come up until question time.
Yes, unfortunately tonight, because we're about to close the meeting for the public, the content of the meeting has come to an end. So when that occurs, we do the public question time right to the end. So it occurs at 6:40 or close thereto, depending on the matters of the meeting. So,
To proceed.
sorry,
You wish me to proceed?
did you have an additional question? No.
Read out.
No, understood. General Manager, would you mind if providing Mr. Herbst his response again?
100%.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
perhaps maybe I can short circuit that a bit. My question was initially, what percentage of applications for development, building, etc., in the residential zone
Yes.
are permitted as of right,
Yes,
as opposed to those where
understood.
discretion applies over, say, a 12-month period? Just so we look at that.
Oh, yeah, I can.
So, yes, so that was what the, so would you care to read the response again for the benefit of Mr. Herbst?
Put it in writing to you, Mr.
Yeah,
Herbst, I will too. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
essentially, to answer that question, and I'll read it again, there's no as of right category in the Tasmanian planning scheme, rather the use and development, which is not exempt, falls into one of four categories. No permit required, permitted, discretionary, and of course prohibited. In the 2023 financial year, council issued 31 permitted permits and 130 discretionary permits. A further 103 applications were deemed no permit required. Only 2 applications, 2 were refused and no appeals were initiated against council. And then it goes on to say, does that answer that part of the question? Yeah,
Thanks.
no worries. And I'll put that in writing to you as well.
Yeah. Well, what prompted this question? I'm not surprised at those figures. There's a very high percentage of approvals there, which are discretionary. In other words, you're allowing permits for developing residential zones, which don't accord with the requirements of planning scheme, particularly in terms of building height, boundary setbacks, and overshadowing and so on. And what prompted my question was the fact that close to where I live, there's a huge house being built in Tucker Street, which many of you would have seen. If you haven't seen it, you want to go and have a look at it. It's 3 stories. It's well above the normal permitted height. But we've got a whole schedule of discretionary permits, including setbacks, building close to a creek, close to a railway line, removing vegetation, etc., etc. And none of the neighbours in that area were happy about it. There's one form of objection, I understand, which was dismissed by the council or not considered. And this pattern, I see it continuing around the municipality where very large houses are being built and the council's allowing, in many cases, allowing that to happen in terms of allowing a dispensation from the normal setback requirements, the normal height requirements, overshadowing and so on.
So Mr Herbst, did you have an additional question, or you were just, was there an additional question for us, or were you just providing that context about the reason for the question, your concern that you're
And
expressing?
from people I speak to around the town, I'm certainly not on my own. There's a lot of people with a similar view. There's a pattern of these very large houses being approved. In terms of speech, you have a similar example out there. You know, the neighbours aren't going to generally object. They're not going to take their neighbours to the Planning Appeals Board for various reasons. They just normally accept it. And I think in many cases it's unreasonable. The council allows all these dispensations.
Thank you. So I'll just give the Director of Planning, Daryl, an opportunity to respond in as far as we said, there is no such category as of right, and the mechanism that the Tasmanian Planning Scheme allows us as far as discretionary applications. Did you have any comment from Mr Herbst about the intent of the scheme in that regard?
Yeah, sure, thank you. And look, I'm happy to touch base with you outside of the meeting and go into any specific concerns you have. But under the current scheme, I guess there is no provision for council to make a dispensation. So we can't let somebody off the hook, if you like. Discretionary just means that an exercise of discretion is required. So a planning matter will either meet the acceptable solution, which is usually quite specific and quantifiable, has to be within this height, for example. And then if it can't meet the acceptable solution, the applicant has to address what are called performance criteria. That would be things like overshadowing, loss of privacy, etc. So we're not making dispensation and saying, oh, it doesn't matter that it's higher. If they don't meet the height acceptable solution, for example, we've then got to say, have they addressed the performance criteria? And if they have, really under the Land Use Planning Approvals Act, we have to approve it. So that's how the system works. It's complex and I'm happy to discuss it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, how it works. I suppose the question is how you treat that and the decisions you come up with, which I understand are made by the Development Services Committee, is it?
Sometimes we have what do we call it now? What's the Development Support Committee? It's now called the, help me, Daryl.
Yeah, it changed recently.
It did.
We haven't met yet. The
Planning Support
Planning Support Committee. We actually meet very infrequently. Mr Herbst, most of the we only use that mechanism when there's a development application time frame that falls within a monthly council meeting, and we can't make those timelines work. So it doesn't meet very often. Most of our development applications do come to the full council table, and as Daryl has indicated, we have a set of guidelines, and if it meets the standards, then we're obliged to consent to it. I acknowledge the property that you're talking about in Tucker Street. Most of us are aware of the journey that it's followed and its size compared to the rest of the environment there, but it met the scheme that it was required to meet at the time and was therefore approved. So certainly, Daryl, as you've indicated, Daryl, if there's any specifics or if you had questions for future council meetings or wanted to raise that, get some clarity around that, then we welcome that conversation. As you'll appreciate, we work within a legislative framework, and if it ticks the boxes, then it ticks the boxes. And as Daryl said, it's not a case of us saying, we make a decision just around the table that it's a thumbs up and it doesn't have to meet the standards. It must always do so within the planning framework.
I guess the question is the discretion that's used by that committee in making that judgment.
We use the term discretion, but it's only discretionary as far as the legislation allows. It is not our discretion. It's not the discretion of individuals around the table to make our own determination. The term discretion is used between the performance criteria and the acceptable solutions, or the other way around. So it is the discretion that the scheme allows, not the discretion that the table allows. The language is not particularly useful in that instance because it does infer that we could make ad hoc decisions based on the minds of the people around the table at the time, and that's not the case.
Performance standards are interpreted by the committee.
No, they're interpreted by the scheme.
So just to answer your question further, so staff, professional planning staff will always do the first assessment. At our council, if there's a representation from the community or if the staff are recommending refusal, it will then come to councillors and as the Mayor explained, depending on the timing, it might go to the planning support committee, but generally it will come to the full council table to make that decision. And certainly in the vast majority of cases, councillors are of the same view as the professional staff. But I'll give you, if you'd like, I'll give you a call tomorrow and arrange a time to sit down and go through it in detail.
That's fine, thanks, that's okay, thanks. Well, and I just, generally just want to make the point that,
Yes.
you've seen that property, you've seen that house, imagine you're one of the adjoining owners or the neighbours. I just want to make the point that you've got to give these matters consideration, improving often these enormous houses which people now want to build. They have a significant impact on neighbours, on the surrounding area that don't fit into the streetscape and so on. I just think the council needs to keep that in mind, because we all don't want to see a house like that appearing on our side boundary, do we?
Understood.
I'll make that point anyway.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
point received. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Were there any other questions from the gallery? Michael, did you have a question for us?
Thank you very much, but no, I'll drop the subject on what I was going to mention.
Okay.
Tonight. But I'd like to thank you very much for the quick response I had last month from the letter I received from the council on the matter I left with you. And you did a very good job down at the wharf that month with the community conversation. That was a very good night down there.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Oh, that was no trouble. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank
Thank you. And I know that Ms Gibson doesn't have any questions because she told me before. So in that case, we will bring the meeting closed to the public. And thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for your time. Thanks, Gary.
See you, Gary.
Change that language to expression.
Enjoy your trip away if we don't see you.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you.
I'll see you later.
Right, the minister of language.